Basically what we're gonna do, my friends Andrew and Kayla are here with me, so say hi.
Hello.
Hey.
So we're gonna go over kind of wilderness tips and first aid tips for winter hiking, and also their experience winter hiking, because recently they had an emergency during their hike. They were doing a bushwhacking hike where they had to be rescued, and they spent about 6 hours in a cave. So we'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about gear tips and things that you can do. So we're going to start off having you guys introduce yourselves. So pretty much just, say what are your names and what type of activities do you like to do, and maybe what's one of your favorite adventures that you've done.
Sure. All right, I'm Andrew. I do a lot of hiking, do a lot of camping, rock climbing, running, gym, all that kind of outdoorsy, fun, active stuff. Hang out at the beach, kayak, all that good stuff. My favorite adventure so far is I recently did the entirety of Devil's Path in a weekend. That was tough, but very rewarding and fun.
I'm Kayla, and I do a lot of hiking and rock climbing and canoeing and kayaking and dancing, actually. One of my favorite adventures so far was a 40-mile canoe trip, the whole length of Lake George. We slept on islands for 3 nights in hammocks. It was just an awesome trip.
Awesome. So thank you. So I guess to start off with, we're going to talk about the bushwhacking hike that you guys are on, that you had in a real emergency situation in. So basically, Kayla, can you tell us where in the Catskills, the peaks that you were going after, and also how many people were in your group and what the weather was like and stuff?
Okay. So we were doing 5 peaks in the Catskills, Peak Moose, and then a bushwhack for Lone Rocky Balsam Cap on Friday. And we had 6 people, including the 2 of us, 3 of whom I'd never met before this trip, so it was cool to meet people and then bond with them immediately.
Right.
8 or 9 miles.
Yeah.
And it was snowing pretty much the whole time.
Okay. Awesome. So, AJ, what kind of experience did you guys have as far as like doing bushwhacking hikes and your navigational experience and stuff?
Sure. So I'm in Eagle Scouts. I've been doing navigational work, hiking, camping, work with maps and compasses or different apps and whatnot that do that kind of for you since like 6th grade, something like that. So a long time. I'm 24. And as far as bushwhacking goes, I only did 1 bushwhack prior to this. It was actually also in the Catskills. It was North Dome and Sherrill Mountain that I did, I think, a week or 2 prior to this.
You guys were, started this hike, everything was going great, it was beautiful, there's snow. At what point would you say that you started to get to like a more difficult, like you found it more difficult to find a safe part of the trail to navigate?
Balsam Cap.
Balsam Cap.
Yeah, Balsam Cap Mountain, which was the one before Friday Mountain where we had our incident, is probably where we stopped thinking it was super easy.
And just to kind of so everybody knows, I don't know if you did the peaks in order, but what was the order again of the
Peak
peaks?
Moose, Lone, Rocky, Balsam Cap, and Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So the last 4 were a bushwhack. The first one was on trail.
Gotcha. Okay, so, and then what do you think contributed to having troubles navigating a safe trail? Either of you.
Oh, sure. Like Kayla was saying earlier, about an hour into our trip, it started snowing, so by the time we ran into our incident, there was about 5 inches on the ground, and we started with no snow whatsoever, so it was a storm the entire day. That, and also, by the time we hit Balsam Cap, it was getting dark, and by the time we hit Friday Mountain, it was pitch black out, so yeah, 5 inches of snow and pitch black on top of a bushwhacking mountain.
Still snowing, too.
Still snowing,
Yeah.
Definitely all contributed big time.
And then, of course, one of the worst things that you can think to happen during, especially a bushwhacking hike, happens. And AJ, you broke your foot, which is 6 foot, and you fell 25 feet. And explain kind of like what happened and what's going through your
sure.
head.
So it was we summited Friday Mountain, so we were done. We hit all 5 of our peaks, and we were heading back on the way down. Prior to the hike, we mapped it out and everything, and we knew that coming off Friday Mountain was going to be the hardest bit because we were heading eastward, and we knew the contours were very close together, so it was going to be a steep descent. What we didn't realize, though, was that the very close contours translated into cliffs and not just a steep hill. So we were trying to find our way down, and me and the other guys and Kayla and everyone were kind of scouting left, right, and center to see what the safest way down was. And then after about 40 minutes of that, where we moved probably a grand total of 50 feet, we decided to pick a path and stick with it. So I was leading the way, and I just slipped and didn't really stop slipping. So I fell in a kind of baseball slid about 8 feet, and it was pitch black out, so I had my headlamp on, and I knew that was about as far as I could see. So once I slipped past that point, I realized I didn't know where I was slipping anymore, and then I stopped slipping, and I didn't feel anything around me anymore, and I was just falling. So I was just focusing on falling correctly, and landed flat on my back and just whipped my foot on the ground, and as soon as I stood up, I knew I broke it. So.
And Kayla, what was your experience of that happening?
My experience was I was a little bit behind him with a couple of the other people in our group, and we heard him yell really loudly and then silence for several seconds. So we started yelling, and after a scary amount of time, he said, "Yeah, I'm okay." Didn't really sound too sure about it.
Yeah, I was really unsure.
We were all pretty worried, and we kept yelling and stuff, and he's like, "It's okay, I hurt my foot." And so then we all hiked down to him, and yeah.
And as far as like hiking down, like he had fallen to wherever he was, so how difficult was it to get to where he was?
I think Matt found a slightly easier path around that, but it was still
it was still
8 or 9 feet of scrambling down a icy, snowy ledge.
Right. Yeah, I found where they were coming down.
Minimal holds.
Yeah, I found where they were coming down from. I literally had to like grab people and bring them down because it was so ridiculously steep. When I stood up, I looked up and I almost couldn't see the top of where I fell from, and I was just like, why am I not more hurt? So I'll take a broken foot. That's fine. It should have been much, much worse. But my backpack broke my fall, which was nice.
And so your foot's broken. At what point did you finally like stop and think, okay, we need to call for help. We can't continue anymore?
After a couple more ledges that he somehow climbed down with a broken foot, it was very dark. We couldn't really see too much off the cliffs. We didn't know how high they were. We kept thinking, just one more ledge and then we'll be to flattish, hikeable stuff. But there were so many ledges. And so I said to AJ, like, at what point do we just camp somewhere? Because I'm worried somebody's going to get hurt worse climbing down these. And so they scouted a little bit more, and then we ended up cutting sideways along the cliff, and we found a cave.
Wow, okay. And so, with the cave, like, was how big of an area was this cave at?
It was probably about 12 feet long and maybe like 7 feet deep, something like that.
Small boulders in the back of the cave,
yeah.
Flat ground.
Yeah, probably about shoulder height. Wasn't terribly tall.
So then you decide to call for help and kind of describe the process of calling for help, the questions that they asked you, did they keep in contact, what did they tell you to do, kind of like what it's like to really call for help.
Yeah.
What really happens after that.
So the most nerve-wracking part was trying to get a signal out there, so it took about 3 or 4 times of calling 911 before we got someone to answer.
I actually didn't know that yet.
Yeah, so we got an operator. They were trying to get us our information, and a couple of our phones already died, so I think we only had like a total of 4 phones at this point out of the 6 of us. So they asked what all our names were, where we were, what mountain we were on, what direction we were headed, where we came from. They wanted to know where. So we did it through hike style with one car at the beginning of our hike and one car at the end. So they asked where both cars were, so they could try and draw a straight line on their maps. So once they had all the information that I could give them about where we were, right down to GPS coordinates that we had, so we gave them those as well. Then they asked for everyone's first and last name, everyone's contact information, so our phones so they can keep in contact with us, and I think they just kind of wanted to make sure that we were in a settled position where we weren't going to go anywhere while we waited for them.
And they asked if we were pretty well equipped, which we were. I mean, no one was hypothermia level cold. It was very chilly, and all our layers were wet, but we were pretty manageable.
Yeah, that sucked. Everything was wet, and it was like 18 degrees at this point.
Dire.
Yeah.
No, not dire. We had good equipment. I think we were pretty well prepared, but they wanted to make sure we were in a stable condition.
Because otherwise they'd have to bring up parkas and everything like that for us, but they didn't have to haul all the winter equipment up the mountains.
Right.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing that. And then the last question would be, having experienced that now, what do you feel like you've learned? Like, what did you do right? What did you learn about being in an emergency situation, and also just with the bushwhacking and stuff too?
Just being in the emergency, I think what we did really well was we made sure to check in on each other very frequently, every several minutes, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. One person would say, "Hey guys, how are we feeling?" And we would go around in a circle and say 1 through 10 what we were feeling physically and mentally, and just how we were doing. And if anybody could help, if someone's hands were cold and someone had hand warmers, we just all helped each other out, and we did a really great job with the teamwork on the scrambling and the ledges, and just had a really great group.
Yeah. The composition of our group was awesome. No one really panicked or freaked out, or if they did, they kept it to themselves. But yeah, kind of like what Kayla was saying, like the whole like mental game of it was definitely the biggest part. Just making sure everyone's morale was all right, because after we called for help around 7:30, 7:40, something like that, and it took them 7 hours to find us. Like, we weren't on a trail. We were in the middle of nowhere. They had rangers come from New Jersey and New York, so they had to get out of their homes, rally, form a plan, get all the equipment they needed, find their route, get to their starting point, then find us, and then do all that stuff. But our setup was really important. We gave everyone a job, so whether it was literally if someone's job was to cuddle the coldest person, we would do that. One of our guys, Chris, built a fire for us, which took a little while because it was snowing and everything was wet, but we eventually got that going, which was huge.
Up on the boulder facing the valley, and a flashing headlamp facing the valley, and we both had whistles that we blew every couple minutes. So strobe light facing outward, emergency whistles every 5 to 10 minutes, a signal fire for warmth and to signal. About every we tried to dry our clothes out. Some of them got burned, some of them it actually worked. And about every hour, about every 45 minutes, we got text message updates from the rangers or from the police station asking where we were, what the deal was. We were able to send them our Avenza maps, screenshots of our GPS coordinates and where we were on the mountain. So that was very helpful to them. And we had service, so some of us were actually able to text our parents from the cave and let them know that everything was relatively fine.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as it can be.
Right. Oh, the other thing, since all our phones were dying, is we shut all the phones down except for one, and then let that one totally die. Turn the next phone on, let that totally die, and then before they found us, I think going through all of that, all our phones died probably around like midnight or 1 a.m. So they found us around 2:30. 2:45 in the morning.
So when they found you, your phones were dead.
Yeah, our phones were totally dead. But we were able to see them like a couple miles out. They had all their headlamps. I think there were about 4 or 5 guys coming out to get us. So they actually found us at the bottom of the mountain and looked up. They're like, "Nah, we're not climbing that." So they went all the way around to come get us.
And then they looked down one of the ledges and they said, "Oh, well, it's a good thing we don't have to climb down that, because there's no way they could have gotten down that." And then they looked down and saw our tracks, so they did have to climb down some of the ledges. But
so it was emergency blankets were huge. The whistles, we went through food, even the tubes in our backpacks for camelbacks were frozen, so we had some water on the inside of our backpacks, which we used.
I had a couple of water bottle parkas that kept everything unfrozen, so that was good.
Yeah.
Was the water frozen in the hydration?
No, just in the tube that was exposed to the air. Because at this point, I think it was about 13, 14 degrees out for 7 hours, which was not fun, which is why keeping morale up and just kind of checking in on everyone's like physical and mental state every few minutes was really, really important. That way we were able to address whatever concerns came up.
And I remember we talked about this before, but the fire was almost probably one of the biggest important factors of you not having anybody having hypothermia
and even morale-wise, it helped a lot with the morale. Like, we knew we could warm up a little bit, and it just made everybody happier. Just to see the fire. Yeah,
I'm definitely convinced if we didn't have the fire, we would be like missing a couple toes or fingers for sure, because it was 13 degrees for 7 hours,
and we're soaking wet.
And everything was wet, just because everything was wet, and it took us about almost 2 hours to start the fire, because everything was wet, and we had lighters, we had matches, we had like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, thankfully Chris eventually got it going, and Matt, one of the other people we were with.
Did you guys have a fire starter with you?
No, we actually had to wind up making a fire starter. So that's one of the things we learned, is to bring a fire starter.
We wrapped toilet paper around
a bundle of matches.
Bundle of matches.
Yeah, we had a bundle of matches, wrapped toilet paper, made like a little torch, and then threw that into our little bird's nest we made, rat's nest.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I thought maybe now we could go over what you guys have in your kits as far as survival gear and first aid.
Okay, sure. You go first.
So let's see. So I have paper maps.
Maps,
important.
very important. And
lots of
good,
hand
not
warmers
just,
now. Yes, paper is so good.
Not just computers.
Lots of extra hand warmers. I don't usually use them on hikes, but I have been recently. Because once you get really cold, it's difficult to pull the hand warmers out. And then, let's see what else. I have emergency food. Little packets, pre-cooked packets of salmon and tuna. I haven't had to eat them on a hike yet. I had some of them there, but we didn't need the food. We had plenty of extra food. Backup headlamp, whistle with a compass and a mirror on it. Stormproof matches, very important. I think that was what we bundled.
That's
in
what we
toilet
wrapped.
paper. Multi-tool, lots of extra batteries because we had some headlamps that died.
Yeah, my headlamp died because I forgot to bring extra batteries. And
So, yeah, I carry a bunch of extra batteries. This is my second flashlight in here, I think, and more hand warmers. Some utility cord I haven't needed yet. Medical tape. And I actually just started bringing this little backpacking stove that I just got on very cold weather hikes in case the water freezes and we need to heat it. This is Optimus Crux Light, I believe. Life straw, which we didn't end up needing, but would have been good to have if we needed to melt snow. And backup microspikes, which is very important because
hiking in the winter, microspikes or snowshoes are huge.
Yes. So
Which is
these are
great,
pretty
but
awesome.
for me, the one thing that I'm just going to jut in and add is that making sure that everybody has those things beforehand. I'm not going to carry some extra microspikes just in case somebody doesn't bring one because they should be
Yeah, we had one person that didn't have microspikes, so I gave them mine, which is probably why I fell, but...
Yeah, I've been carrying the backup just in case mine break, or if anyone else's break, because that does happen. Mine have the bar on the front got twisted, so it pulls off. Yeah, when we were walking down with the rangers, they came off a couple times, and he helped me out a bit with that. But and then I just started bringing rubber kitchen gloves, which we haven't figured out if they work, if they fit over ski gloves yet. But if we're doing a very steep scramble and I need my hands a lot, if the gloves are going to get wet, I figured I could put these over glove liners just because
your gloves got soaked. They were completely wet, right?
And I have a 2-person emergency blanket, which is very important because the one person is pretty small.
And you guys found that it wasn't really covering you all.
Yeah.
Because we were sitting on boulders in the back of the cave, and I couldn't really get it wrapped under my legs. So I had 2 pairs of pants on, and both were soaking wet. So the air was just going under and hitting my
First time I
legs.
ever used emergency blankets too, but they really work. But having 2-person, even if you're just by yourself, a 2-person one is definitely what you want. I'm carrying 2 single persons with me now in case I ever need it again.
Another flashlight, and I have my primary headlamp over there that we've been using. And then past that, just a bunch of different kinds of tape, medical tape, athletic tape, and tenacious tape to fix any ripped packs or anything.
So I have largely the same thing, so I won't go over every single thing that she just went over. Some things I have that are different are, there's these really cool, Lucy sells them. They are inflatable solar lanterns, so you don't need batteries or anything like that, and they provide, I don't know, like 6 hours of light. So I actually have 2 of these in my backpack, which is really nice. The other thing I have is I have a regular headlamp. I also keep a lighter and an emergency whistle, all just in the very front of my pack for quick access. And then a life straw, you already went over that. I got one of those. Some extra food, kind of like what you said. Hand warmers I have to stock up on. Emergency fire starter. I now carry those because that was such an issue getting the fire started. And so now, I carry literally, it's this big. It's but it burns for like 2 minutes and it's awesome. They're cheap. This one's called Wet Fire. Fire starting tinder. There's 1,000 different kinds you could buy. They all work fine. But yeah, definitely having some kind of fire starter, because we had lighters, we had matches, but sometimes you need a little bit of extra just to kind of get you to where you're going. I carry a 13-liter bag like 90% of the time, just because I like minimalist kind of deal. But yeah, pretty much everything she said was things I carry, or maybe a couple things I don't really carry too much. Like I don't usually carry hand warmers just because I personally run hot, but I really should, for even if it's just for other people. But yeah.
You guys didn't mention it yet, but I always carry some duct tape. You might have that too, but just to put it out there, because it's just so you can use it for everything, to help repair a bag, to even like cover. I think I've even heard people say you can cover wounds to like.
Yeah, you can.
With that too. So, and then I get, even though they totally charge you way more money, but I get these nice flat ones, so they just pack way easier, and you're not carrying an entire roll in there. And then of course, a emergency rescue signal mirror.
Yes.
That I drop on the floor, and a compass. Which I'm sure you both have.
Yes, we both have compasses.
Just to put it out there, since, you know. And then I carry a couple extra things that, you know, aren't necessary, like, everybody carries, but I just like it just in case. I have face masks for doing CPR.
Yep.
You can do one little one. Plus, you never know who you're going to run into. You could run into somebody who's just having an emergency, not related to the height, you know. And since I've taken first aid and CPR classes, you know, that way I can protect myself and then still feel like try to save somebody's life, hopefully. And then something that I want to get, and we've talked about this before, but that quick clot like
I have
thing.
it, but I don't have it with me. Yeah.
So it, like, if you have, like, say you fell and you cut yourself deeply and you're starting to bleed and you couldn't clot, like, it's just like this one packed thing that clots it. And I just feel like a lot of the times when it comes to stuff like that, it's the big things that you really have to worry about. That if you're waiting 6 hours in a cave, you might not be able to wait that long for. So that's not the little Band-Aids, you know, the 500 Band-Aids they give you in those first aid kits. I throw most of those out. So yeah, those are the only other things. That
my first aid kit is over there. But I normally have it in my back.
So yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it. So thank you for doing this video with me, guys. And this is Andrew and Kayla, and I'll let you guys know their Instagram handles so you can follow them too. So.
All right.
Peace out. So at the end, not at the end. We'll cut that out.
Favorite imagery. Sorry,
You got it. That's gonna be like the first question.